The options for studio monitors nowadays seem to be endless, but today I want to show you a pair that have quickly become my new favorite for the home studio. Okay, so I've been rocking the same pair of studio monitors for almost 10 years, and those are the Yamaha HS80Ms. I picked these up when I was buying my first few pieces of gear during college, and since then, they have been fantastic to say the least. Recently though, I got my hands on my first set of secondary or alternate speakers, mainly because I wanted something to reference my mixes on after I produced on my Yamahas. Since getting them though, I have been so pleasantly surprised that I'm not quite sure these speakers are just for referencing anymore. The speakers in question today are the IK Multimedia iLoud MTMs, and I loved them so much that I've recently started to use them alongside my Yamahas. Now, they're not perfect, they do have a few things that I think could improve, and I'll mention those later on, but for what they are, I think they have been fantastic, and if you're looking for your first pair of speakers for the studio, or maybe your second pair, then I hope this video helps you out. Lastly, before we get started, I do want to take a moment to thank the sponsor for this video, Sweetwater. We all know that Sweetwater is a place to go for musical instruments and pro audio equipment, so if you want to check out these speakers, then I'll leave a link down below. Okay, so let's talk about these speakers. The first thing that you must know is that they sound absolutely fantastic, but they are even more impressive when you consider the size. Each speaker is roughly 10 by 6 by 5 inches and weighing in at about 5.5 pounds. Now, normally at this size, I'd start to worry a little bit about frequency response or maybe volume range, but let me tell you, I have absolutely no complaints in the sound department for these speakers. The MTMs are two-way, bi-amped, rear-ported monitors with dual 3.5-inch woofers and a 1-inch tweeter and a total power of 100 watts, which is divided into 70 for the low frequency drivers and 30 for the high frequency drivers. In terms of frequency response, they boast an impressive 40 Hz to 24 kHz range, so they will work for the majority of music genres. If you take a look at the back of the speaker, you'll notice all of its controls, including the DSP-powered EQ settings, a calibration button, which we'll talk about in a little bit, a sensitivity button, a volume knob, an XLR/line-in input, a headphone jack for the calibration mic, a USB port for additional connectivity, the AC power socket, and the power button. Finally, when you purchase these speakers, you will get one speaker, the power cable, a tiltable vertical stand, a horizontal stand, the calibration mic holder, and cable. Now here's where I have my first concern. The price of each speaker with everything that I just mentioned will run you $350, and if you want the pair, well then just multiply that by 2. They do have a bundle that is only available at the IK Multimedia site, which comes with 2 speakers and 1 mic, but the price remains the same as if you bought them separately, each with its own mic, so honestly, I'm confused here. Relatively speaking, the MTMs are on the lower end of the speaker price range, and for what they offer, I do think they're worth it, but personally, I would have loved to have seen a bundle that came with the pair, so 2 speakers and 1 mic at around $600. That to me would have been the sweet spot. The other thing that I was confused about was the volume knob in the back of each speaker because it doesn't have a midway point like you would expect, like a ratcheting midway point, so you kind of just have to eyeball it. I found myself just cranking that thing up to the max and then controlling the volume of the speakers through my interface. Now this is something that I would have done anyway, but I thought I pointed out just in case. Finally, as mentioned, they are rear ported, and depending on how loud you have them, sometimes you can get some heavy breathing from the speaker, especially on low frequencies, but you really can't hear it most of the time unless you go behind the speaker. Okay, so believe it or not, those are my only real concerns with the speaker, but now let's talk about the great. Before these, I had the iLoud micros, and those sounded really great, so I knew that these had to be good, but I didn't expect them to be this good. Not only can they get loud, but the frequency response is vast. Comparing them to my Yamahas, these have a range of 40 Hz to 24 kHz, while the Yamahas have a range of 38 Hz to 30 kHz. Despite the similarities though, these do sound more mid-range focused to me, but nonetheless, everything still sounds amazing. I've run them through basically every genre that you can think of, from metal to EDM to acoustic ballads, and they still pull through. The other thing that I loved about these speakers is the sound control. As mentioned earlier, you get an array of controls in the back, including a low-cut filter that you can set to either 40, 50, or 60 Hz, individual controls for each of the drivers that lets you set them to flat, plus 2 dB or negative 3 dB, a sensitivity button that switches between plus 4 dBu and negative 10 dBu, and finally a calibration mode to set them to either desk, flat, or calibrated. Now that we're here, let's talk about the calibration mode. Now, the speaker by default will be set to the flat setting, and you can switch them to the desk mode if you plan to put them on your desk, but you also have the calibration mode, or the calibrated mode, which in my opinion is the best option out of the three. As mentioned earlier, each speaker does come with a microphone for the calibration process, and this is actually super simple to do. First, set up your speakers in the proper position, creating that equilateral triangle with the tweeter at ear level. Side note, another great thing about these speakers is that you can actually position them either vertically or horizontally, so you do have options. Because of space constraints, I have mine placed horizontally on my desk, but if you are taking this approach, I do suggest you pick up some additional desk speaker stands like the ones I have here from ISO Acoustics. These will not only provide better speaker isolation from your desk than the ones that they come with, but you could also angle them up or down to make sure the tweeter is pointed directly at your ear. Anyway, once you have all that in place, set the microphone at the intersection point of the triangle you just created, otherwise known as the listening sweet spot. Connect the microphone to the back of whatever speaker you are calibrating, and then just press and hold the calibration button. Soon after doing this, the speaker will start to emit a series of sine waves that I assume are just measuring your room and then readjusting the EQ of that speaker to correct for any imbalances. I'm gonna be honest with you, I was super skeptical about this whole mic calibration thing. I really thought it was just a gimmick, so for the first like 2 weeks of having the speakers, I completely ignored the microphone. After calibrating though, I can tell you that they definitely do make a difference, so much so that sometimes when I'm producing and I switch to my alternate pair, the MTMs, I forget that I'm not on my Yamaha, so take that for what it's worth. But there you have it, those are the IK Multimedia iLoud MTMs, one of my new favorite speakers for the home studio and beyond. Not only do you get amazing sound quality, but they can be tailored to your room to make sure you have the best mixes, and on top of that, they're super portable so you can take them on the go. Let me know if you've been thinking about picking these up, or if you already have a pair, what your experience has been in a comment down below. But that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be linking the speakers down below for your convenience. Once again, thank you to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video. And as always, like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you're not already, but I'll see you on the next one.